What is up, everybody? It is Rust Belt Perspective here. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. Today is November 3rd, 2023, and today we're going to be talking about the state of Michigan in the 2024 United States election cycle in both the presidential and Senate levels. And Michigan is a state that has historically gone blue statewide, though it is considered a purple state overall on the federal level. And many political experts, after the big 2022 the Democrats had in Michigan, are considering it to be leaning towards the Democrats in 2024. You look back at 2020 when it went for Trump, went for Biden by 2.8 after he flipped it away from Trump. It was a close race, less than 3 points. Biden pulled out the victory there, and then of course in 2016, Trump won the state by 0.2 in a very close race in the state of Michigan. It took a couple weeks after the election to be able to call Trump the winner in that state. But from 2012 all the way back to 1992, it had consistently been a blue state federally for the president. But it's gotten to be a lot closer ever since Donald Trump has taken over the Republican Party. You saw it was darker shades of blue earlier on for the most part until Trump took over when he swung the state big time in 2016 and barely lost it in 2020. And then on the Senate level, the Republicans have not been able to elect a senator from Michigan since 1994. Since 2000, it has only been Democrats representing Michigan in the United States Senate. Stabenow first won in 2000 by 1.6, and from there it has remained blue. But in 2018, Debbie Stabenow, she won election to her fourth term by 6.5 points. In what was supposed to be a big blue wave year. And while on one hand, yes, she won by a likely margin, as she should have as the incumbent, but on the other hand, Tammy Baldwin and Bob Casey in neighboring Rust Belt states won by double digits, while Sherrod Brown won by a similar margin that Debbie Stabenow did in a much redder state of Ohio. So is this 6.5 or Stabenow really that impressive? This race was kind of closer than it needed to be. And then in 2020, Democratic Senator Gary Peters barely won re-election and was supposed to be a big blue year. Other than the whole situation in Georgia that year, this was the closest race of any of the Senate races throughout this map. Gary Peters barely hung on. And then, of course, in 2022, the Democrats won big on the governor level with Gretchen Whitmer, though the Republicans were in total disarray in 2022 there as their top governor candidates were disqualified. And they essentially had to settle for a nobody, and Gretchen Whitmer, who is popular in Michigan, she won big. But clearly, this state federally has been close, though because it has been mostly blue and the big of 2022, a lot of the political experts are considering this a lean Democratic race across the board. The Cook Politicals report, Inside Elections, Sabados Crystal Balls, Election Daily, all of them think so, at least on a Senate level. And rightfully so, they have, like I said, they have reasons to think so, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of the members saying it's going to be. You see, when Biden won by 2.8 in 2020 in Michigan, he won the national popular vote by 4.5 points. So Michigan did vote to the right of the country in this race, even though Biden did barely win. And I just talked about how Gary Peters barely did win and how Stabenow's election was closer than it needed to be. And in 2024 on this Senate level, Stabenow's retiring. This is a wide-open race, and while the Democrats do seem to be behind Representative Eliza Slotkin, which is good, it's still a wide-open race. And the Republicans, unlike in Wisconsin, and you could even argue Pennsylvania, they do have a viable candidate to take on the Democrats. They have James Craig, the former Detroit police chief, who was the front-runner in 2022 for the governor race until he got disqualified. And they also have longtime representative Mike Rogers of the state, who ironically he succeeded Debbie Stabenow in the House back in 2001, and now he's trying to succeed her in the Senate. And those are two candidates that totally could win. Though between those two, Craig does pull above Rogers right now, but there's a lot of that time for that to change. And you dive deeper into the polls on the Senate level. Slotkin, she is sweeping the polls right now. Though all of these polls were taken over the summer before any of these potential Republican candidates even declared, except for Nikki Snyder, I believe. Since she polled by 5 above Rogers, which that is a sizable margin. She polled 7 above Craig, but you got to think. This plus 7 for Slotkin, that was before Craig entered the race. It was just speculation at this point before Craig's Senate race really gained traction. Now that Craig has declared and is in this race, I think a new poll between these two could be a lot closer. A poll between Slotkin and Rogers could even be a lot closer. And Emerson College, they are a very reliable source. They do get polls right. But you look back at this race in 2018 in Michigan, and they had Stabenow winning it by 9, and it wasn't quite that close. Or it was closer than that, I meant to say. Stabenow only won by 6, so that was a little bit tighter. I know I'm nitpicking a little bit there, but it gets more interesting than that. In 2020 on the Senate level, Gary Peters was supposed to blow out John James. Gary Peters was sweeping the polls, and not lightly, but as I showed you, that race was a lot closer than it needed to be. Emerson College was off by like 3 or 4 points there. Who is, like I said, is a very good source for getting elections correct with their predictions. So that makes, now I know a lot can change between now and the next year, but that makes these 5 and 7 point margins seem a lot tighter than they actually are. And of course, that's on top of the fact that those two had not declared yet at this time. But then you look at the presidential level, which we're also looking at here, not the primary, the general election. Right now, it's pretty even between Trump and Biden in this state. 2 of the last 3 polls called it even, and there's another one that said Trump plus 2. Gretchen Whitmer, she does defeat Trump in a poll, but that's kind of like Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. Like, of course, the incumbent governor is going to have some popularity there. But you know Whitmer's not going to run for president anyway. And then before this, I mean, there's a poll where Trump won by as many as 7. There's a Democratic-funded poll where Biden wins, but these polls are pretty close. If anything, they are favoring Trump, which in 2020, Biden was supposed to win this state by 8 points according to the polls. In virtually every poll, Biden was soundly defeating Trump by 6, 7, 10 points. There was only a Republican-funded poll leading up to the election day that had Trump winning this election. It was Insider Advantage and Atlas Intel that were the closest, with Biden at plus 2. That's close to what happened, plus 2, plus 3. But for the most part, you see Biden was overestimated big time. And Emerson College, they had Biden winning this by 7 points, and that they were like 4 points off on that one, just like they were in 2018 and 2020 on the Senate level. And you even look back at 2016. Clinton, she was supposed to beat Trump via the polls by over 3 points, and Trump was able to swing that almost 4 points to win. And you see, 3 weeks before Election Day, Trump really took a dip there, but he started surging again big time before the Election Day. And on Election Day, he had his best polling he ever had coming into it, and he, of course, narrowly won in 2016 in Michigan. And that's another thing. The Republicans have been good at surging in polls if the national mood in the weeks coming to elections. So that's another thing that could tip this in Trump's favor, or the Republican Senate candidate's favor. You see, Michigan, like its fellow Rust Belt states, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, they have voted together every year since 1992. But you look throughout the 21st century, Michigan has always been the furthest left state of the 3. They voted for Biden by 2.8 in 2020, while Biden only won by 1.2 in Pennsylvania and 0.6 in Wisconsin. So by over a point, Michigan was the furthest left. And in 2016, while Wisconsin and Pennsylvania got Trump by 0.7, Trump won just by 0.2 in Michigan. And that trend was still going in 2012 when Obama won by 9.5 in Michigan, and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin were a lot closer. I could just show you the shade of blue in 2008 to prove that to you. Same with 2004 and 2000. As Michigan has always been the furthest left of the three. Another thing worth mentioning is the black voters do make a big impact in Michigan, and with the potential Senate candidate for the Republicans, James Craig running, that could be a boost for the Republicans in Michigan, at least in the Senate level. I would not be surprised to see a split ticket because the 2.8 for Biden here and the 1.7 for Peters in 2020 was over a point off. So if we're within a point, which is totally realistic, especially based on what we just saw in 2016, within a point, I could see a split ticket between maybe James Craig and James Craig, and it would be Joe Biden at that point. So can the Democrats still win this? Absolutely they can. They've, as I've shown you the trends, that they usually do, and they just won big in 2022. But based on these numbers, I think this is going to be a lot closer than most think. I could totally see Michigan, especially on the Senate level, voting to the right of Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, because, like in Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin, popular, she does not even have a strong challenger. And then in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey, very popular. He does have a decent challenger, maybe, but still, that's not going to break Casey's group in the state, I don't think. Michigan, though, I think will be a lot closer. In my video a couple days ago with my Radius Round of 2024 Senate predictions, I had this as a lighter shade of blue than these other two. So, again, the Republicans, I think, are very much a realistic threat to win the state on both the presidential and Senate level. But am I overreacting here? Let me know in the comments. Again, please like and subscribe. Feel free to join my Discord server. The link will be in the description. Am I overreacting to this? The Democrats going to win again like they did in 2022 big time? Or am I onto something here? Please, let me know. Thank you very much. Rust Belt Perspective, signing out.